This is a time when we are meeting here in New York amid a looking back as well as a looking forward, and with the news last night of a specific, credible but unconfirmed report that al-Qaeda again is seeking to harm Americans.
Secretary of State Hillary Clinton reacting to a new terror threat on this 10th anniversary of 9/11. Let's bring in our panel. Steve Hayes from the Weekly Standard, David Drucker of the Roll Call newspaper, and syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer. So, Steve, law enforcement, as we've been reporting tonight, pursuing reports that al-Qaeda may have people inside the country, unconfirmed but credible reports, car bombs either in Washington and or New York. What does that tell you about where we are 10 years after 9/11?
Well, it's a stark reminder of the fact that this war goes on, as much as I think people have decided, I think rather arbitrarily, that the war is over because we've done such a good job of decimating al-Qaeda Central in Pakistan and Afghanistan. The fact remains that even a small number of operatives sent from Afghanistan and Pakistan or Yemen or Somalia or anywhere else for that matter can do a tremendous amount of damage. One car bomb is all it takes. And, you know, as to this particular threat, these kinds of threats are almost always unconfirmed until they're not, until they actually are pulled off. So we shouldn't take any comfort in the fact that this is specific, credible, but unconfirmed.
You know, David, former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani says this is exactly the point, that 9/11 is not part of our history. You can't tuck it away in a box like December 7th, Pearl Harbor, because, as he says, it's part of our current reality. 9/11 and the threats and the challenges continue to this day.
That's correct, and I think even if you look at December 7th and World War II, even that, in a sense, is a part of our current history. We're still deployed in Germany and Japan. Much of our military is still based, in a sense, around a Cold War footing that emanated from World War II and everything that came after. And I think for a long time to come, we're going to be left with a 9/11 anti-terror footing. The infrastructure that was created coming out of 9/11 in terms of the military infrastructure, the special operations, and everything we do is still with us and will be with us. And as Steve said, you really don't know that you've succeeded if something hasn't happened. It's the hope that we've succeeded. And so I think while many of us feel a lot better around the country about the war on terror or the the terrorist threat, it's still with us.
Charles, where do you think we are 10 years later, both in terms of protecting the homeland and also in terms of waging the war on terror?
I think we're much safer, and we've achieved a lot. Al-Qaeda Central's been decimated, scattered. Look at bin Laden in his last days. He was the hero, the jihadist hero. They were naming children after him after 9/11. He ended up as a recluse, sitting in a room watching himself on an old television in a room with nothing in it. That deterioration is clear. The fact that we're talking about car bombs, which is sort of Timothy McVeigh level terrorism, which is not hard to pull off. You only need a single operative. You only need a lone wolf, compared to what 9/11 was, an incredibly complicated, intricate plan involving 19 people who were ready to commit suicide, organized, long range, with all of the elements required. That was a singular event that I think al-Qaeda is likely unable to ever pull off again. So in that sense, we've had a remarkable success. Of course, the war on terror will continue because jihadist ideology is not eradicated, but it certainly is in decline compared to where it was
I want to pick up
10
on
years ago.
I want to pick up on something. You talk about a new conventional wisdom you believe there is in this country, that we, the country, our leaders, overreacted to 9/11 and created a climate of fear for the last decade, and you don't have much patience for that opinion.
It's the complacency that you get when you've had success. Success of having no repeat attack in 10 years. Everybody who lives here who remembers 9/11 is in Washington or New York remembers how everybody here thought there'd be a second attack within months. It never happened.
Within days.
And it never happened over a decade. And it didn't happen because al-Qaeda all of a sudden decided it would cash in its chips, or because its leadership read Jefferson and decided it would give it all up. It happened because we launched a war against them offensively, especially in Afghanistan and, of course, in the borderlands of Pakistan, and we constructed this elaborate apparatus which a lot of people on the left had attacked as oppressive, which in fact has retained our civil liberties and kept us safe.
Next up, the Friday lightning round, including Rick Perry's contention that Social Security is a Ponzi scheme.